and welcome to the Brown Perspective. This is one of your hosts, Eduardo, and I'm here with El Mero Mero RO.
Hey, what is going on?
Not much, man. Just wanted to talk to you about reproductive rights today and the interesting trend that we find ourselves in this year in particular is really the tale of two Americas, while our folks in Latin America, Central and South America, and the women in particular have advanced their reproductive rights. It looks like the Supreme Court here in the U.S. is wants to take us back 49 years back into time.
Te dije, ¿qué te dije? I told you so. We talked about this, remember?
Elections matter.
We knew they were coming after this. We knew it was only a matter of time. They were they were they were they were setting the foundation. They were broadcasting it. They were signaling that this is what they wanted, and what we got a chance to find out about it early because someone decided to release this draft opinion to Politico. So that shook the establishment. It shook the Supreme Court all last week. Let's dive into what this means for the country as it regresses and becomes even more conservative. And it is becoming conservative, even though a lot of the conservatives claim that the liberal wing controls Hollywood and that they control we've gone through those arguments before. But let's get into this right here. So, what did you think when you saw this headline?
Well, I thought it was interesting because it's truly unprecedented in recent history, at least that a whole opinion is released it's making official, before it's made official. And I think that if we do find out who it was, it would be interesting to know their motivations. And was it a liberal clerk or judge who decided to leak this just to give the opposition some heads up
Yeah.
and some energy, or what was it, somebody on the right who leaked it just to make sure that the conservative justices stayed in the same position?
The consensus online, at least in my Twitter feed, is that it was a disgruntled liberal that did it because they were outraged at what was about to happen. I don't think, at least to me, it doesn't really matter, especially if they were going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And as for the message that it sends, the hit that the Supreme Court takes, I mean, that's only if you assume that it's not politicized to begin with, which, I mean, come on. The Federal Reserve is not supposed to be political. The Supreme Court's not supposed to be political, but are they? Are they not? That's another
Well,
story.
it's all political, right? So it's all political in the sense that it's about
But they're supposed to be
determining.
impartial, right? They're supposed to be above that. They're supposed to look at the facts and go based on what they think is right, as opposed to aligning ideologically with a specific party. But which we know they do. But yeah, it's hard to separate those two.
Yeah, I think for me is the fact that yes, this is going to be devastating particularly for poor women of color who are going to further have their rights, their reproductive rights curtailed, because we know that, you know, rich folks have the means, the tools to decide to have kids when they want to have kids. So this really impacts the, again, women of color,
Yeah.
low income. So it's
How
really
long?
unfortunate. But at the same time, I also think that it's not going to be easy to take away a right after having it in the books for 50 years. I think that, this is going to mobilize women voters
Yeah.
and even the women who don't vote, because I think both of all ages, because this is an issue that directly impacts them. And yes, there are women who believe in in the right to life, and I respect that. But I think the majority of women also respect and want to have the right to choose when they have a child.
Of course, we've said before that it's their decision, and I think both you and I are in agreement with that. And before I talk about what you just said regarding whether or not it's going to pass, let's just throw a question there for you. Assuming it does get overturned, how long do you give it before the first conservative politician is outed as forcing his mistress to have an abortion because it would have affected his campaign? Because you mentioned how the wealthy always have access, and they'll just do it, and they'll just keep it a secret because they have the means to hide it, right?
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
say,
probably not long.
yeah, yeah, because these guys are total hypocrites. So we know they're gonna do it, and yeah, it's the poor people that don't have the means to do it, and that's unfortunate because it's going to be driven underground, and you're gonna have all these shady establishments that spring up trying to provide this service. I don't know if you're familiar with the dentists that got their credentials in Mexico, and a lot of them came to the U.S. at some point, but they couldn't practice here, so a lot of them set up their dentist office in their garage, in their own homes. And so I've known of people that go and get their dental work done there. And I suppose you could see it as a benefit if they're fully qualified and if they got their credentials. But at the same time, if something goes wrong, if they mess up, you really have no options to protect yourself. And that's going to be the same way here. They're going to drive this underground. But the bigger question that I want to ask you is, it sounded like you still don't think that this is going to pass. So does that mean then that you think that it was beneficial to release the draft opinion because it does give the liberals and women more time to mobilize against this and to make them feel the pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that if this, because it was such a controversial decision, the court, and they will likely wait until probably August, just before the end of their term, to
Mm-hmm.
release the opinion. And I think by then there would have been a lot more um, primary elections, right? So we're in a midterm
Yep.
year. Just this week there was the primary elections in Ohio and Indiana. Those are pretty conservative
Which, by the way, the
states.
Trump candidates did pretty well, at least
Oh,
based on what I saw.
yeah. I mean, in some ways, with this decision, you can see that President 45 delivered for the conservatives,
Yep.
right? And he did a list of Supreme Court candidates. He nominated them, got them through the Senate. And let's remember that one of those one of those positions was stolen from Obama, from President Obama. And so there you go, right? It's pretty controversial, but I think from the conservative perspective, this is a win that took a lot of work, a lot of strategy, but they set themselves up not only to undo reproductive rights, but it's so many other things that are at danger,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's that. But yeah, I definitely think that in some ways, given a lot of the other primaries that are coming up, Georgia, California, etc., I think this is going to give more of a concrete jump to the liberals in particular to go out there and vote for their primary candidates, to donate, and to get people elected who can eventually overturn this, right? Because this is likely going to get overturned, and the way that the system is designed is really designed to allow the minority in power to have a lot of influence, right? So it's going to take a while to, who knows how many more years it's going to take to institute or codify the protections that were afforded under Roe versus Wade.
Right. So you're saying that, okay, they will overturn it, but then eventually it's going to revert again to the original ruling. So the overturn is itself going to be overturned.
Yeah, well, and it's overturned by having Congress act on it. So right now is part of is part of it is why didn't the Democrats
Mm-hmm. Well,
pass a law making Roe versus Wade the law of the land? Part of it is because it's a controversial issue. There's a lot of
and because
moderate Democrats
because the
who
Democrats themselves are conservative.
exactly.
Yeah.
But now I know next week Senator Schumer is gonna m- make senators vote on where they stand. There is a number of Republican senators who expressed their shock and discomfort by the fact that the three of the judges, the justices who are supporting this opinion, had said that they had accepted Roe versus Wade as president of the as president, and they would adhere to it.
Mm-hmm.
So now it will be interesting to see how many Republicans will actually vote for a bill that would make Roe versus Wade the um, the law of the land. Probably not many because it's not likely to pass. It's probably not going to have all the Democratic support that it needs to get to a 60 vote. The
Mm-hmm.
other option would be, I think, out of more than immigration, this issue could potentially make the Democrats do away with the filibuster for this type of bill, and that will be interesting because I think that they understand that women voters are very very influential.
Well, that's assuming that the Democrats come up with a strategy that actually benefits them. The way I see it, there's a lot going against the Democrats right now against liberals. There's, for better or for worse, the Republicans have done a really good job of pointing out or um, not exposing, I don't want to say, but shedding light on a very small minority within the liberal establishment and blowing it out of proportion and making it seem like these guys are in control. And what I mean is by the LGBTQ movement, by the culture wars, by the young generation demanding that others use their pronouns, their preferred pronouns. So that's an issue that affects a small percentage of the population, but the entire conservative establishment has made it seem like the liberals want to destroy this country because look at the direction that they're taking us in. Look at how crazy and demented and deranged they are, that they expect other people to refer to them as they instead of he or she, right? And I think that in itself has also alienated a lot of the older liberals that would have seen themselves more on the liberal side, progressive side before. I think they're not really identifying with the new generation. And then you also throw on top of that all of the lockdowns that were supported primarily by the Democrats, by the liberal establishment, and then the censorship of social media, the being okay with companies like Twitter and Facebook censoring anything from COVID to now news about the war, anything that doesn't go with the narrative that's coming out of Washington, out of the military industrial complex, pretty much. So I think there's a backlash against a lot of these issues within the liberal establishment that may play very well for the conservatives. And I said this at the time when Joe Biden won, that I think in these midterm elections, they're just going to get slaughtered. And then Trump is very likely going to take the office again in 2 years unless they figure out a way to deny him the ability to run based on January 6th. But it's not looking good. And so if they overturn Roe versus Wade, which I think they will, so it's just a matter of time, I think you're absolutely right. What else are they going to come after? Now they have this boogeyman now that the liberal establishment wants to destroy society and wants to allow everyone that, they use these memes like the liberal establishment says that men can get pregnant and then they blow that out of proportion and they make it seem like the entire liberal establishment wants to go in that direction, and they scare the older generation of liberals. They're like, yeah, I don't think that's right, and so it might affect how they vote. Now some of these guys may actually end up voting for Republicans. So I don't know what the Democrats are. I don't think the Democrats have a plan. I think I think the Democrats and the Republicans just work hand in hand. At the end of the day, once everything is said and done, they go to their private parties and they drink cocktails together and they high five each other, and they all just distribute the money amongst each other and say, "Oh, here you go for a great job that you did, pretending like you cared about the people." That's just me. I'm very cynical, but I don't have high hopes for the Democrats actually having a good cohesive strategy to deal with this, and then to counter everything that's coming in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, some good points, but I do think that this decision throws a wrench on a lot of what you said
How
because
so?
I think that, well, first of all, this gives so much of the rights that LGBTQ individuals now enjoy, same-sex marriage,
Mm-hmm.
so much is built out of Roe versus Wade and out of all of the legal decisions that had to sort of advance women's rights,
Mm-hmm.
that advance the conversations around sex and gender identity. And also, I mean, but fundamentally, this is a privacy issue,
Yeah.
right? And I know the cases that sort of the penumbra of privacy within the legal precedents, but it's about privacy and what's more conservative and more American that this is my home, this is my property. I do with it what it is that I want.
But
If I don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. If you don't want to get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated. If I don't want to have a kid, don't have a
all
kid.
right,
It's
but
your
they
body, your
have
choice.
yeah, but they have the loophole, which is a very convenient excuse, which is once you throw religion into the mix, then God told them that it's bad to murder babies, so that overrides however they may feel about personal freedom.
Well, God also said, ayúdate que yo te ayudaré, right? So,
I'm just
vacúnate que yo te protegeré.
I'm just saying they'll find a way to.
Ponte el tapabocas y yo te protegeré.
Well, the conservatives are pretty good at compartmentalizing, so it doesn't matter that you point out the inconsistency in their belief for individual rights, because they don't care, because in this case religion trumps that, because you're not supposed to kill an unborn baby. So that's what they'll say. I
Well,
think that.
there's a lot of things you're not supposed to do, right? You're not supposed to, you know, covet your neighbor's property and wife. You're not supposed to lie. You're not supposed to steal. You know,
Yeah, but
there's a lot of things that
the number
apparently don't.
but
You know,
the prerequisite to join any religion is that you have to be a major hypocrite. So
whoa, 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 whoa. Speaking on behalf of all the Catholics out there, you're
uh,
mistaken, sir.
maybe just in the U.S. then maybe the Protestant wing of Christianity.
Well, no, but that's the thing, and part of the issue here is that conservatives forget that as religious as they want to make the U.S. seem, the founding fathers separated church and state for a
Hmm.
reason because they knew it, right? So I think that in some ways they don't realize the type of damage. Yes, religion and sort of preying on people's desire to have a moral compass, to have the simplicity of this is great, this is good, this is bad, this is white, this is black,
Hmm.
and not deal with the gray. It's problematic, and I think that's one of the reasons that I know that you and I give a lot of we say, oh, Democrats are not going to have a strategy or are not going to be able to do this. The reality is when you have a Democratic Party with a lot of views, with people who are pro-life, with people who maybe don't care so much, and people who are um, really for women reproductive rights and all those things. You have a very diverse set of views of experiences through which this issue is looked at and analyzed. And then I think it falls a lot of it is a strategic differentiation. So just in the same way that I know last election cycle we were talking about, well, the liberals, the Bernie Sanders of the world should just be who they are and go liberal, go all the way, and let the cards fall where they may. But again, you know, there's this desire to seem that we're welcoming and opening and thinking of, can we get a larger group of people to support our ideas, to support our candidates. So I think that we're certainly getting to a point where we're just continuing to get more fragmented. And to your point on social media, now you have social media. Now you have an issue that really directly impacts the lives of so many people. And going to the earlier comment about, yes, I mean, you have a lot of older liberals who do remember what it was like to live in life before Roe versus Wade, who had friends who maybe themselves suffer through bad abortions, using coat hangers and all these horrible things that maybe not only killed some of them, but maybe impacted the ability to have later kids later on in life. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, and then you also now have a younger generation who not only they have contraceptions, they have medication and other options, and who are more empowered about who they are and when they want to have a family or not, right? So anyway, so I think that it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But I do feel that this issue is a lot easier. Anger is such a motivator in politics, and the anger of Roe versus Wade um, getting struck down is going to mobilize people to a larger extent that they would otherwise been mobilized
It
during a regular midterm
Yeah,
election.
it's gonna come down to how much this can unite the progressives, the liberals, the conservative liberals, the different factions within the left, because there are a lot of different factions. There's the very young generation that's going to be vehemently opposed to this, but then as I mentioned, there's the older generation that has probably just the left has shifted a little bit more towards the left, and they feel like they've probably gotten a little more conservative, either because of age or because the politics of the left have gone in a direction that they don't agree with, especially with the identity politics. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see if this is something that can galvanize and unite. Because if not, then you're not going to see the opposition against it that you think we may need in order for this to at least to slow it down. Because ultimately, like I said, I do think that they are going to overturn it, and then let's see what else they try to come after.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. There's a long list of things that are probably gonna be tackled.
All right, well, let's keep an eye on it then. We'll have some follow-up discussions on it. Just scary times as the country regresses into the, what's that program on Netflix? The Handmaid's Tale?
Oh yeah,
I
that's
think you've
on.
seen it.
It's actually Hulu, if
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not
is it Hulu?
mistaken.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. One more piece of the puzzle falls in that direction, and we didn't even get to talk about Latin America. Latin America.
Damn, boy. That's the whole reason the brown perspective exists, to highlight Latin America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you can just give us a quick a quick breakdown of how the everything is moving in the opposite direction now, where the U.S. is getting more conservative, and then these just your traditional Catholic countries like Colombia, Mexico, and Argentina seem to be becoming a little more liberal when it comes to abortion.
Yeah, and yeah, real quickly, I think it's been interesting how, for the most part, the United States is seen as this place where, well, it had been, where women had a lot more freedom, right? And eventually that sort of that motto of the American woman and the ability for them to be in their workforce to have greater autonomy as to when they decide to have a family or not is the type of model that obviously, um, women everywhere and women in Latin America also adhere to, but because of the strong, strong, strong roots of the Catholic Church and how embedded they are in both sort of the culture and the law, the abortion fight in Latin America has been a very slow
Mm-hmm.
fight, right? So I think there's
Mm-hmm.
been progress in Mexico, and even not entire Mexico, but I think Mexico City
Yeah, definitely.
was one of the first places to do it because it's, a huge liberal city. Other parts of Mexico, then Argentina was the a big country who also passed and made abortion legal. And then the last one was Colombia, which is sort of seen as building that momentum, built on the lessons from organizing in Mexico and Argentina and Colombia and other parts of Latin America where maybe they haven't had as much success. But in any case, all that to say that this has been work that has been done by women advocates in those countries, and then them being able to be strategic about the cases and how they mobilize, how they highlight
Mm-hmm.
some of the ways that women rights are being um, being uh, oh my God, what's the word that I'm looking for? Um,
Well, while you
how
Yes, I was gonna say, while you think about that word, and these are also countries that have traditionally been very, not only conservative but machistas, um, very traditional. So the women there, the organizers, had a lot going against them, and I'm sure they faced a lot of challenges to make all of that progress that they made. Mexico, Colombia, and in Argentina.
Yeah, they're the kind of countries that American conservative, U.S. conservatives, which see the U.S. as and
Mm-hmm.
wish it was. But yeah, I mean, some tremendous some tremendous abuses when you think about all the women that are killed,
Yep.
raped, um, is really horrible. So in some ways, um, this is a testament to their tenacity to be able to advocate for their rights, and I think in some ways this is hopeful because maybe as things regress in the U.S. for however long, some progress will continue to take place in Latin America. And again, and I think even some of the advances in these laws are not as liberal as Roe versus Wade, but they're certainly a step in the right
Yeah, they're
direction.
going in the right
And I think
direction. Yep.
yeah, so I think now it's also going to be more of a, I guess, transcontinental fight for women rights, right? Because now you see
Mm-hmm.
how how that okay, it's not just this quote unquote backwards religious countries that are having these fights. Is you know, the 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 mighty U.S. that is now also still having these fights
Yeah, and
around women's ability to choose.
and just to wrap this up, just to give a little more context in terms of how conservative some of these cities or towns in Mexico are. The small town where I come from, or even the city, one of the common criticisms that you hear from men regarding women is that you can't find yourself a traditional woman anymore. You can't find yourself a woman that's willing to like be a housewife. That women today, that they want to party and they want to drink and they want to have all of these freedoms, and they don't really say that they want to have all these freedoms. They say they want to do whatever they want, as if it's a bad thing, because they want someone that was like their mother, that was that didn't really have a lot of rights, that had to stay at home and clean and everything. And they make it seem like women out there drinking, that's such a terrible thing. It's like a very similar to the conservatives in the U.S. saying that the culture is going to shit. And I always say, well, isn't that what you guys were doing the whole time? partying, drinking, and doing whatever the hell you wanted to. Just one want to do the same thing.
Exactly.
You don't
Yeah.
know what's wrong with that. And I say, if you don't want them to drink, then maybe you shouldn't drink either. Just well, how about both of you guys? Because I'm drinking all the time is not necessarily a good thing, but if you're gonna do it, then the women have the right to do it as well. And if you don't like them doing it, then you shouldn't do it yourself either. So it's just pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. No, it's pretty amazing. How, oh yeah, I can do all of this, but you can't, because there's this
Yeah,
religious traditional image of what.
I always yeah, I always tell them, what do you expect? They learn from the best.
That's true.
They don't like my commentary. That's why I don't get invited to a lot of family functions.
Es controversial.
Yeah, here he comes. Don't get him talking about politics. All right. Any closing thoughts?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this issue. I know that it's going to be um, a hard fight, and one of the reasons, and I think as for those of you who are not involved in politics, I think it's one of the reasons why it's so important to be involved, and because there's this, obviously this is a big decision that you can tell how just a handful of people can have a tremendous impact on the trajectory of millions of lives, both for the good and for the worst. So I think part of the reason why, and I know this is something that you also discuss in conversations, like keeping elected officials accountable, having conversations, voting, being informed, and sort of, and because now, as what happens here in the U.S. moves, it's going to now move. Now it's going to move into the states, where obviously states like California and other states have progressive laws, and some other states not so much.
Yep.
So now it's going to be the type of fight that's going to be fought at the state by state level.
Yeah, but the funding is going to be affected, even if the states manage to pass laws protecting women. So yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens. And I think in closing, I'll also say, yeah, it's important to get involved. Get involved early. Don't wait until some decision is made that you don't like, that you want to oppose. That's why you want to get involved early and try to build that base, try to build that support, get involved and join movements to push against these things early on. And also, I don't want to end this podcast without shifting some of the blame towards the Democrats themselves, because they didn't manage the Supreme Court appointments wisely. They didn't. I think that they could have definitely prevented Trump from appointing 3 justices had the Democrats strategized better in the previous 2 terms that they had under Obama. So don't want to get too much into it, but also don't want to give him a pass because that played into it as well.
Interesting. And I think we'll see what happens under the Biden and Harris administration. But the last point, too, is now there's another dynamic. And maybe this was the case back in 1973 when this case was originally decided. But now you have huge companies like Amazon, Apple, who are, corporate citizens, because the Supreme Court said that they're, corporations are people too.
Yep.
So corporations now have the right to help their employees seek the type of care that they need to. So it'll be interesting how all of this evolves as the official decision is handed down.
Yeah, that's right. Well said. Okay, entonces I think we'll wrap it up there. For all you out there, if you enjoy our content, make sure to check us out. We are Brown Perspective. Estamos on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Nos vemos.
Ciao.